I think maybe the first time you do something unexpected, uh, it adds just like a level of richness to your life that wasn't there before. And so it keeps you coming back of like looking for the next challenge and trying. But I don't know. I feel sort of at least partially hypocritical about it all because I'm terrified of death. And why are you terrified of it? Because it's an unknown.
That was Anton Krupicka, and this is the Yogi Triathlete Podcast, episode 65 of the YTP. Welcome to the show. I'm Jess, your host, and this is the place where every week we share stories of people looking, finding, and living their purpose. People who are in the pursuit to find what resonates most deeply within them and live in a way that allows for those pieces to take center stage. Each one of us is on a unique expedition in this life, and it doesn't matter what it looks like on the outside, what we do for work, how we dress, what kind of car we drive. It's about identifying what it is that brings elements of joy into our lives amidst the roles we play on this earth, and then leaning into those elements despite a lack of comfort or the vast unknown. Taking the next logical step is all we ever have to do, whether that's sitting in a traffic jam and choosing calm over frustration, or selecting the next hold while scaling the side of a mountain, as in the case of today's guest. It's all about living in a more conscious way, a way that allows joy to be shown to us and allows us to find our purposeful path. We are all worthy of this. We all have gifts, and it is our job. I believe it's our responsibility to let those shine in their truest essence without a care of what others may think, because really, what others think of you is none of your business. Right? So it's just best to stay out of it, especially when we are living in alignment with what is true for us. And so how do we do that? How do we even begin to find out what brings us joy, share those gifts, and not care what others think? How do we find purpose in life, or maybe just in a moment that we're in? It all sounds so daunting, but really it's quite simple, and it falls under one of the most natural states of being, curiosity. Adopting, maintaining, and nurturing a sense of wonder about life, the outdoors, our world, our choices, our actions, the thoughts we indulge. And it's through this curiosity that the answers are born and the solutions are drawn in, and the unveiling of our truest selves has a chance to breathe. It's a constant return to our beginner's mind, the mindset where we are open to what is coming our way in amazement of wonder. Today's guest, Anton Krupicka, or Tony, as he introduces himself, had a major head start on this concept of wonder as his parents instilled in him the value of curiosity from a young age. Growing up on a 640-acre family farm 7 miles away from a town of 350 people in rural Nebraska gave Tony many moments of exploration and adventure with the land that he grew up on. His exposure to the mountains and the magnificent landscapes of the West started at the age of 4 with the annual family camping trip. And this exposure soon turned into a love for the West, and those camping trips were the highlights of every year. His love for exploring the outdoors was the perfect match for his love for running, a love that he found through living on the land and also the annual presidential physical fitness test at school. He realized that not only was he good at running the mile, but he loved the training. And in 5th grade, he decided to run a mile every day in preparation for the annual test. At the age of 12, he ran his first marathon, and as you will hear in our conversation, he was crazy about his preparation. Adopting his training regimens from secondhand store running pamphlets put out by Runner's World in the 1970s, he found the preparation for competition absolutely fascinating. He was counting calories. He was fasting intermittently. He was putting down 60-mile weeks of running at the age of 12. So, some of you may have already made a surface judgment that what he was doing was unhealthy or obsessive or not the way that you would recommend a young boy to prepare for his first marathon. But as Tony explains, under it all was this undeniable love for the art of training and competition. Fueled by his deep appreciation for education, he was learning something new, and he was using himself as the specimen to test his limits. And like some boys play with video games or Legos, Tony was just doing that, but applying it to the physical test of running a marathon. He continued to run through high school and into college, but all his hard work, his massive weeks of mileage, and his wanting to be a really good competitive runner were not returning the times that one would imagine. But that never stopped Tony, because as you'll find in our chat today, running is so much more for him than the finish time and a clock. There's a great joy that enters through the simple act of running for him that is closest to his heart. And don't get me wrong, he is uber competitive, but how Tony lives his passion for the outdoors, curiosity, wonder, pushing his limits, walking into the unknown, is never just for one thing. It's a symphony of effects that keep him going. And when injured, as he has been most of his running career, he shifts gears and he gets curious about what he can do in those times. Tony broke onto the ultrarunning scene in a major way with his 2006 record-breaking win at the Leadville 100 trail race, which also happened to be about the time when the sport of ultrarunning was blowing up. And so Tony went from an unknown to very well-known. Some may even say he was the face of ultrarunning. He became known for his long hair and minimalistic approach, but as you will hear in our conversation, there is incredible depth to Tony. He is strong in his perspective, real in his tone, and a super interesting compilation of high-level intellect, open, adventurous spirit, and a beginner's mind. We caught up with Tony during our recent trip to Boulder, and we recorded this episode outside at our friend's home. So you will hear the breezes and the birds in the background, which just brings it all back for me. It was such a beautiful night. All right, so without another moment more, let's dive into our chat with ultra runner, climber, cyclist, explorer, and student of life, Tony Krupicka. All right, cool. Well, let's dive in. So we've got a little bit of time here. I want to dive in, and there's so many areas, I think, to go with you, and especially, we got to know about you, surface-wise from,
Sure.
Back like when you showed up at the Leadville in 2006. And,
Oh, wow, okay.
But even since then, especially in these last few years, correct me if I'm wrong, but now you're climbing, you're cycling, you're still doing a little bit of running, but you're also
that's
kind of
my body
like,
lets me.
yeah, and you're also kind of like dealing with some things with your body. So let's take it way back, where you grew up.
Okay. Yeah, I grew up in Nebraska on my family's farm, which was 7 miles outside of a town of 350 people. And the nearest, anything American was an hour away. Like a McDonald's or like a Walmart or something
So
like that.
So you kind of grew up in
a real grocery store.
Like
yeah.
you had quiet time.
Oh, yeah.
As a part of just your life.
We have 640 acres and, but land there's a lot more of it in Nebraska than there is where people want to live.
So what was life like that growing up?
It was great. It was great in some ways and very limited in other ways because it's rural America and the public school systems are just kind of like falling apart because of lack of humans, basically. And my graduating class had 12 people in public school. But that's just the way it is. It's just the rural areas of the country are being depopulated basically through corporate agriculture and the way the economy is now. But so I don't know. So that was sort of, you had to work in order to have a kind of worldly viewpoint. But at the same time, the way that my family raised myself and my siblings was very, with a very close relationship to the land and trying to instill certain values and principles. And so it was good. I'm very grateful for the way I grew up, I guess.
What kind of values and principles stay with you now?
The importance of education and curiosity and questioning things and being curious about the world and being good. We can go on for days about defining what good is, but being a decent human. And but essentially, I think being someone who is interested in the world, and obviously that takes a certain amount of luxury, like financial stability. So that leads to a whole other set of principles. Like my family, my dad was a program director at a nonprofit. My mom was a high school teacher. Like we're not even close to having a lot of money. But my we're just super frugal. And, I mean, me and both my sisters went to private liberal arts schools, and that's just because my parents were just psycho about saving money, and we all got scholarships and stuff too. But so those are the kind of values, I guess, that I'm talking about.
Well, I think that this idea of, I mean, if you want to travel the world, if you want to go to Thailand and Asia and all these different things, and I mean, there's a price tag that comes along with that, but I think you can still have a curiosity in life and have a lot of discovery on a very small budget. And
no, I mean, just the world at your doorstep is complex and very, I mean, you could spend your whole life in one place and not exhaust the possibilities for learning. You know what I mean?
And I think curiosity has been kind of suffocated a little bit with the modern world and how we, got to get our 9-to-5 jobs and go to work, and that maybe a lot of people forget about that right out your doorstep, you have endless amounts of things to discover.
Well, I mean, earning money is a necessity though too. Mm-hmm. I mean, a certain amount.
Yeah, you got to live in the world.
I mean, I'm not going to decry the 9-to-5 job. Like, I think those people are just trying to like get through the day, they're trying to have a life, and that's something I completely respect. But there's just an overall attitude you can take in your life, and it can be one of intellectual curiosity or just like submitting to the grind, I guess. But
where did you go to school? You got a scholarship?
Sorry,
academic?
I went to Colorado College in Colorado Springs, and I had a science scholarship there. So it was full tuition. I'd pay room and board, but yeah.
And was that your first taste of Colorado life?
No, so my family every summer, and this is part of like all the things we're talking about, every summer we would take like a week or 2-week car camping road trip out west and visit the national parks. I have 2 sisters, and that was my first exposure to the mountains when I was like 4 or 5 years old. I can remember that, going to like the Black Hills, then Rocky Mountain, and I'm just everywhere from the Northern Canadian Rockies down to the Pacific Coast, Desert Southwest, all of it. I became, and that was always maybe because it was like those were for vacation trips. It was just like, that was like the highlight of the year, and so the American West always had a huge allure for me. And I very deliberately like went to school out west in Colorado as a result. I applied to all kinds of schools in the Midwest too, but I wanted to be in Colorado. Yeah.
Where does running come in?
5th grade.
5th grade?
Yeah, 6th grade, something like that. Just had the presidential physical fitness test,
Oh man, I remember that.
PE class, and had to do a 1-mile time trial once a year basically, and I always won those. But in my 5th grade year, I just decided I was going to run a mile a day in the month prior to it as preparation for it. I don't know. Just
that was your training.
Yeah, it was my training. I don't know. I was just like, because I was already kind of good at it, I was just like, I was kind of psyched about it.
Yeah.
So, and I just literally never stopped. That was in the spring, and I have training log entries every day since April 12th, 1995. So,
wow.
Yeah, like within 2 months of like starting to run every day, I was keeping a training log.
Wait, do you have a total of like everything that you like? Do you have a mile in mind of how many miles you run? Since
I mean, miles have become a lot less important to me in the last
time.
I would say 5 to 10 years. Yeah. But for sure, up until probably like 2011 or so, I definitely like could have told you off the top of my head like what my lifetime total was for mileage. Now, I don't know, 70K plus something in there. But yeah.
That's a lot on
diligent
your body.
recording.
Yeah, and diligent recording.
Well, I mean,
where's the spreadsheet to add all that?
Yeah, I mean, part of it is like, so at Colorado College, I got a physics degree. That was the science that I chose to do, and it was sort of just because I was stubborn. I wasn't good at it. But it kind of speaks to at least half of my brain is very kind of like enjoys quantifying things and tracking things and analyzing things. But I also have a philosophy degree from CC. So
I want to know why, when you found out you weren't good at physics, and why you decided to go after it. Because
I found out first semester freshman year when I was taking calculus 2, and it was tough. But I just stuck it out because I was it's just, I don't know if it's still a part of my personality, but it definitely was back then. You know, it's the same reason why I ran a marathon when I was 12. You know, it's just, I just wanted to like, it was just a hard thing that I was not going to give up on, you know, and it was definitely tough for me, but, you know, eventually it became easier after a couple of years, and I don't know.
Became easier.
Sorry?
It became easier, physics.
Yeah, you just kind of learn how to do college, basically, you know, and
Yeah.
and you take a lot of math classes and learn to become a little better at math.
All right, well, tell us about the marathon at 12, because
yeah.
I read an article where you said you were like, and this is a word that you used, that you were like psycho about this marathon.
Oh, absolutely, yeah. Well, I don't know about this marathon, but just about running in general. So this was July '96, and like I said, I've been keeping a training log since April '95, and I don't know. It was just I picked up all this like secondhand running literature from like used bookstores and Goodwills and stuff. It's where my family shopped, and it was all from like the 1970s, which there's just a very different mentality back then towards running. It was all kind of fresh and new, and people were just trying all sorts of different things.
Who were the resources? Was it like Jack?
No,
Yeah.
Jack Daniels. I don't know if you didn't publish anything yet at that point. Maybe, I mean, he was certainly coaching,
Yeah.
man. But no, it was so Runner's World actually put out this like series of pamphlets, and just like one was on like yoga for runners, strength training for runners, diet for
Back in the
runners.
70s,
Yeah,
wow.
yeah, and the rad little books. Yeah. But I was like fasting at age 12 because like this was one of the things, and I like trying like intermittent fasts and stuff, and doing yoga. But anyways, high mileage was just like the
Yeah.
thing, you know. And I got a second edition hardcover copy of Arthur Lydiard's Running to the Top, and so I was doing 20-mile weekend long runs because that's what you do if you're a serious runner, and 100-mile weeks were like the thing, you know. And not at 12, at 13 that was the case, but 12 I was still just I did like 60-mile weeks in preparation for that first marathon. But
You were ready for the marathon.
yeah, I think I ran 20 miles 2 or 3 times beforehand. Yeah.
What marathon was it?
The Lake Okoboji
Oh, that one.
marathon in,
that one.
Northwestern Iowa. I think there were like 65 finishers, something like that. Yeah, it was like,
How did you finish? Do you remember your time?
yeah, it was 350.
Oh
Yeah.
my
I
God.
don't know where I was in the field, but yeah.
It's awesome.
One my age group.
So I love this this fasting thing, because it's kind of, at least in like
The purview that we're in now. Like,
yeah,
it
like
just-
it's kind of like back, like this idea of fasting, and
I think it just depends on what circles you frequent, you know? I think there's always this kind of stuff going on.
comes up and it's ebbs
Yeah,
and flows.
people are
and-
always experimenting with, you know, like vinegar elixirs and like,
Yeah.
you know, it's just cleanses and that kind
Totally.
of thing. And that, it's just, I don't know, there's only so much stuff in the world.
Do you-
Each new generation has to try it. You know?
Right,
yeah,
exactly.
Yeah, it's an experiment of one. Like try it
Yeah,
on yourself
exactly. And that was very much, and that's very much sort of like why I've never done well with coaches and everything. Well, because not so much the last 10 years, but from the beginning, like I read everything about everything, had all the training books, and so I just had a very strong opinion about all, and also just like, but you need to like try it yourself to see what happens, you know.
Yeah.
And I mean, that was very much Lydiard's like whole trope too. So yeah, I don't know what we were talking about, but
we were talking about fasting. Did
Oh,
you continue
fasting.
to use that at all in your
God,
training?
No, and this is when you say like I said somewhere else that I was psycho back then. It's like, no, I was totally nuts. Like when I was counting calories and like recording body weight, and like it wasn't even like I was like a 12-year-old boy. Like it wasn't like disordered or anything. It was just like I was just like nuts about
You were
the
just
whole
in it.
thing.
It was
Yeah,
like
I was
how kids
lifting
are like
weights and,
in
like,
it with matchboxes, or
yeah, no, that's
you know,
exactly
like,
it. Yeah, like I didn't have like any kind of like body image issues at all or anything. It was just like, I just want to like, I was just really into it. Like
it was
wanted
your
to get better.
gig. Did you have any
Yeah.
friends that were into running?
No, God, no. There's 350 people in this town. No, by the time I got to high school, there was one other guy, we ran cross country together. And there was like 2 years in high school where I had like a training partner a little bit in the summer and stuff, but yeah.
So then you get to college and you're majoring, and you eventually
Physics.
major in physics. Are you still running at this point?
Yeah, I ran competitively, you know, NCAA Division III in college, cross country and track. I was
nice.
horrible, but like I was on the team, yeah.
Yeah, well, you were like, that doesn't seem to sway you. Like if you're not
being a shitty
good
runner?
Yeah, like no.
No, but seriously, like that's always been the case.
That's
like, I mean, I was terrible in high school. Like there's so many people, like I ran so much and, you know, put in so much work, and high school and college, it was always just for naught. I had no like quality results of any kind.
What kept you going?
I just loved running.
You loved running.
Yeah, it was. I mean, I had the bug super early, and
did you ever get caught up in the results? Like,
what do you mean by caught up?
Caught up in like, oh man, what am I doing? I'm not even that
of course.
good.
No, I was always frustrated. Yeah. But not in like. But at the end of the day, like running was still a huge part of how it was like sort of the foundation of my identity, and what I did to like feel good about myself. So it didn't matter like how fast I ran. Like running could still be that. You know what I mean? Like it doesn't, like if you run a mile in 4:55 instead of 4:45, running still feels good on certain days.
Right. I mean, and for somebody that could
but
be.
I'm hyper competitive. But like, yeah, I don't know. It's running. Running has intrinsic things that are separate from your results, I guess.
I think that's a really important statement, because for some people it could be a 12-minute mile or a 10-minute mile.
Yeah,
it doesn't matter. And the one thing that I've learned from being a shitty runner myself is that it's not like people don't like me. It's not, I mean, I'm not saying I'm a shitty runner, but it's not like I've never felt people judge me or the running community judge me because maybe I did a 5-hour marathon or like my PRs in the past, or maybe that I'm not as competitive as I used to be. And the thing, and I think for some people they're like scared to, like it's an intimidating thing to jump into the running world or the triathlon world. But the fact is, like once you get into the community, and I just got into the my taste of the ultra community with the race I did in April up in Mendocino. It was just, nobody cared. Everyone was just like, you crushed it. Like I was out there for over 8 hours for a 50K, and people were like, that was amazing.
Nobody cared.
Nobody cares. Like we're definitely the hardest on ourselves. But I guess what I'm saying is, like, if you're listening and you love running, but you feel like you should be faster, or you're not happy with it, like if you love it, keep doing it. Like, because there's something there for you.
No, I think, especially when you get into the ultra distance stuff, I've always found those challenges to be super humbling. Like say you win a 100-mile race, you're still just completely crushed when you cross the finish line. So it's hard to like think of yourself as some Superman. And that's a common experience across the spectrum of abilities and times. You know what I mean? Like the last place person and the first place person are both really being challenged by the event and the whole experience preparing for it and everything. So yeah, I think that grounds people a little bit. Maybe not to say, I mean, I kind of hate when people are like, oh, if everyone was a runner, the world would be a better place. Like, nah, there's plenty of assholes in running too. Like,
oh yeah,
running doesn't make you a better person.
Right.
It just
doesn't.
No. But I think that
it's a good place to work some
out. Yeah, you won't stick around in the sport too long if you have a lot of ego and arrogance around you.
Because you get a really good, especially I think when you get into the longer distances, because you get a really good look at yourself.
Yeah.
I guess if you're willing to look at yourself, if you're still going to keep the blinders on, and there's no sustainability in that. But I mean, I get a really good look at myself out there because, but the thing that really captured me with the ultra and before that it was road marathon. This is my first off-road anything. Okay. So road marathons and Ironmans and things like that, and especially Ironman, like so much hype, and you got your bags and you got you got your bike and you've got all this stuff, and just to kind of show up with my sneakers and I have my little pack on, and like I just had this kind of crazy outfit on because I needed some layers, but I didn't really have any correct ultra gear, and nobody cared. And but for me it was like, it was being out there, and it was just me in this environment where I felt so small in comparison to just the awesomeness around me and the power around me, and just being able to pull from that. Also humbling of being in such greatness of being in nature, and again, it was my first experience, so ignorance is
because in Mendocino you're in the redwoods there, I assume.
Yeah. So this one goes along, it's the Mendocino Coast 50K, so it goes along the headlands, so along the water, and then into the redwoods for about 20 miles, and then along Big River 10 miles to the finish. So it's absolutely gorgeous. I loved the experience. It was such a big contrast to, I mean, the crowd at the end is, a fraction. It's like what would be at an aid station
where are we gonna
at
find
an
parking?
Ironman.
I was like, you anywhere you want.
Right.
Oh, can we run out with them? Oh,
Well,
you can run
yeah.
out if you
Yeah,
want.
like you
It's
can
it
do
didn't matter.
whatever you want.
Certainly contrast from, I don't know much about the triathlon world, but just from, what you see in the media and stuff. It seems like there's a lot going on.
All right. So college, you're running, you're doing cross country. What year is this? Like, when do you graduate from college?
I graduated from, so I went a 5th year so I could get a geology degree too.
Nice.
And so that was 2006. I graduated.
So that's the year that you won Leadville.
Yeah, that summer. Yeah.
So what was it like leading up to that, or how did you decide to do Leadville?
To do Leadville. My assistant cross country coach in college had run it 10 years previous in 96, and everyone on the team always just kind of looked up to him as this sort of like grizzled vet. He wasn't that old. He's like in his 30s. but he just sort of like...
You look that way.
Yeah, when you're 18, 20.
He had some time on the trails.
This guy, Paul Koch, and he'd run Leadville, and so he was just like our archetypal mountain runner, so like, you need to do Leadville someday. He never said that. He had a horrible time. He didn't like it, but like in my back of my mind, it was like, I want to run Leadville someday. But in 2005, a runner down in Colorado Springs, this guy Matt Carpenter, who's won the Pikes Peak Ascent Marathon like 20 times. He was like an idol of mine in high school. He ran his first 100-miler, and it was Leadville, and he broke the course record by like an hour and a half, which is just totally nuts. He just like completely raised the bar in the sport. So that like put it back on my radar of sort of like, oh man, like I want to go run the Leadville 100. So I did the next year. And
had you run 100 before?
No, I hadn't run an ultra before.
Oh, perfect.
I mean, I'd run like I think maybe I'd run a 40-miler in training once. Not for the training cycle for the 100, but just sort of out of curiosity, like, oh, could I run that far? So I ran for like 5 hours or something. But
you were doing big mileage. Like, you had done big mileage over the years. At that point,
I'd done like, I was already past my highest mileage period for sure. Like by 2006, I'd like stopped doing, I hadn't stopped doing 200-mile weeks, but I'd gone through a period where I like obsessively did 200 miles a week for like 3 or 4 months at a time, and I'd already like got that out of my system kind of. So you had front-loaded some serious like
base work.
Yeah, like
and I'd been doing high mileage for at that point 10 years.
So tell us about the race. Tell us about that experience as much as you can remember, because gosh, that's 11 years ago.
It is 11 years ago.
Crazy.
Yeah, it's totally wild. It's it was just, it's just a big exciting adventure. You're like, I'm gonna go try and do something that I don't know is possible for me. Like, it doesn't seem possible. 3 weeks before the race, I ran the first half of the course. It's an out and back. I ran 50 miles, and the first time I'd ever run that far, like 7.5 hours. But I did it like course record pace, so I was like kind of exciting. But at that point, I was just like, there's no way that I could turn around and run back to town. Like how am I supposed to double this distance in 3 weeks? But it went well enough that it convinced me to sign up for the race. Yeah, on the day of the race, I totally went in planning on trying to win, and I wanted to break 17 hours. I ran 17:01, but I won the race. And I don't know, I'd done a lot of running at that point in my life, so I kind of knew what I was capable of. But the cool thing about 100 miles, and this is especially your first one, is that it is one of those things that just sounds totally outrageous and impossible, that a human can cover that much ground in less than a day. It goes back to kind of like curiosity and uncertainty and adventure. I just wanted to see if I was capable of that.
Were you surprised that you were able to finish it? Was it?
I don't think. No. I mean,
Okay.
So here's the thing about, at least this is my approach about running 100 miles, finishing 100 miles is if you're on the starting line with doubts, you're not going to finish, because there's so many reasons to quit. It's so uncomfortable for so long, Like,
so if you don't have your why before you even start,
if you don't have your, it's not even a why. You have to, at least for me, like, you just have to accept that it's irrational. You can't be like questioning your basic motive ever, because the answer will always be we'll drop out because it's totally stupid and dumb. It's just not. It's completely pointless. So yeah, on the start line, I was 100% certain I was going to finish. Like even if that meant walking the last 10 hours or something. Yeah, I didn't know like how I would respond after 50 miles, basically. And that's kind of why you're there. So.
But that's an unknown that would keep a lot of people from, like, the unknown is really scary to people. For me, it's super exciting. For you, it's super exciting.
Yeah.
But what do you think it is that makes us say, and BJ included, like, let's walk into the unknown, and like somebody who's maybe scared of it, like, do you have any assistance for them of like how to get to that other side? Like,
well,
the unknown, we've been there so many times. How can we quell their fears about what's there?
I think maybe the first time you do something unexpected, it adds just like a level of richness to your life that wasn't there before. And so it keeps you coming back of like looking for the next challenge and trying. But I don't know. I feel sort of at least partially hypocritical about it all because I'm terrified of death. And why are you terrified of it? Because it's an unknown.
But you're tempting it all the time, especially with the climbing that you've been doing. I watched what was the movie we watched? It was like a 35-minute documentary, and you're going up the
high country
first flat iron, like.
Yeah, but that's not tempting death. That's
no, you don't think so?
No, I wouldn't do it if I felt it was. No.
Really?
Yeah, I don't want to die.
We haven't done it, so
no.
I don't know what the steepness is.
But that's the thing. Like that's because it's an unknown to you. It seems, it's like I'm trying to make an analogy here. It comes down to it's a very high consequence thing, but it's not a high risk thing if you have the right skills. Does that make sense? It's like if you don't know how to drive a car, you can easily like run it off the road at 60 miles an hour and kill yourself. But if you know how to drive a car, it seems very simple and easy, and people do it all the time. But it's actually hyper dangerous, and it's the same with soloing something.
But you have to have experiences where you're having fear out there. Do you? Or how?
Yeah.
So how do you?
I was scared yesterday. Climbing.
Okay, so you're scared yesterday climbing.
You get terrified every time. Yeah. I mean, I was on a rope, but like it's still scary. Yeah.
So how
it's just a very like visceral
response. What's that process of letting it? Does it come like it presents itself, and then what? Like, do you let it pass?
And then there's like a rush of adrenaline, and your whole body's shaking, and you get even more scared. I don't know. Like I hate it. I'm not into adrenaline at all. Like I don't know. I don't push towards fear or anything. It's often a byproduct of things I do. But
when it shows up, how do you navigate it?
Take a deep breath. Like it's just like
kind of get present.
Yeah, I guess I don't even think of it that way. I think more just like focusing. I guess staying present. Yeah. But that's also at the same time why you do those sorts of things. I guess because it forces you into the moment. It clears away everything else. And, but I don't find that. I don't know.
You're an interesting dude.
Oh, okay. Thanks.
I like this. I wasn't expecting you to say that you're so scared of death.
Yeah, I don't know. It's just I feel like I have a lot more to do and a lot more things to experience.
You probably feel that for a reason because you do.
Yeah, but I'm pretty young still. I feel old.
You got lots of time. How old are you?
I'll be 34 in like a month.
Oh my gosh,
Oh my goodness.
You got. There's.
See, I feel that way about like 24-year-olds, and they're probably like, oh my god.
We're
45. I'm 45.
Yeah. So 10 years. Yeah, just 10 years.
Yeah. No, you're good. You're good. You got plenty of time.
Yeah.
Right, but I guess we have plenty of time, but really all we have is right now, right? All we really have is this moment. All right, let's go back to the Leadville 2006. So you win it, and you kind of show up and nobody really knows you.
Yeah.
And then all of a sudden everybody knows you.
Yeah.
How was that?
Well, it's a pretty gradual thing, honestly, because there's a couple magazine articles. You get like, a couple of people recognize you on the trails or something, or just because Colorado is a pretty small community of runners and mountain runners, but it kind of just grows over time. I don't know. I think it probably really, because then I came back and won it a second time the next year. And so when you do something like that, and both times were fast, it just kind of catches the attention of the community a little bit, I suppose. And then, ultra running really took off probably when Born to Run came out in 2009. And so the sport just blew up a lot then, and I was at the head of the sport at the time. So
that was one of the best things that ever happened to my massage practice was that book, because everybody would go out and be like, I was going to go out and just run 5 miles barefoot, and I did 10. And I'm like, okay, first of all, you should have done like a quarter of a mile and then see how you felt the next day. But yeah, everybody was coming in with a big mess of a body from that book. That and
it really popularized the sport, though. You know?
It did, like, for sure.
And I coincided with, I don't know. I was in the midst of it that time, you know.
Well, for me, I was really struggling with running at the time. I literally bought a shirt that said "I love running," and I would wear that shirt every time I ran, and anytime I would have self-doubt or negativity, like I would look down at my shirt and I'd be like, "I love running. I love running," and I wore that shirt every time I went for a run because I really wanted to change my mind about it, because I really wanted to do it. And that.
So what's that about though? Like if you're having to like convince yourself that you love it.
I think I was trying to prove, I think back then I was really trying to prove myself and fit in, and I wanted to be more than what I was. I wanted to be faster. I didn't want to be injured. I wanted to run like my husband ran, just a natural runner, and I didn't have those things. And so for me, it was like I was trying to force an issue, but then also I was like, what if I stepped out of this negativity and adopted a more positive attitude, and what would that do? So there was some curiosity there of like, can I change my mind? And over time, like I really wanted to give myself a shot.
So like choosing to love it was the positive bent.
Yes. And what happened was I would like have a mantra in my head, like anytime I would think like, oh, you're such a crappy runner, I would say, you're a good runner. Like, why can't you be like when Craig Alexander, big triathlon guy, would like whip by me on the trail? He's no different than you. Like you can run too. You can be smooth. You can feel good in your body. And once I started to shift that, because over time, like I started to create a new belief about it. I had less injuries. I got faster, and I really started to enjoy it. So that book came out, and I got it on audio.
Born to Run.
Yeah, Born to Run. And what that did was it for whatever reason served as the conduit for me to lift pressure off and say, just don't try and run like BJ. Don't try and run like Tony. Don't try and run like Craig Alexander. Just try and run like Jess and see if you can fall into a natural step. And that's what that book did for me. And it's
really, that's funny. I wouldn't have taken that from that book.
What did you take from the book?
Oh, I don't want to get into that. I'll just be negative about it. Yeah. Okay. I doubt Chris will listen to this podcast, but I didn't think it was a very good book. But
no.
Yeah.
Well, it's interesting because we all have.
But I'm just too close to all the characters in the book.
Yeah, see, I don't know those people.
More than
and I just.
But here's the cool thing: we all have our own perspective.
Exactly, and it's like, don't feel bad about taking something positive from that book.
Right. Right.
Like, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
I'm the cynical asshole, Like, but
you're not though. It's just your perspective. It doesn't make it right or wrong.
Yeah.
It's my perspective. It doesn't make it right or wrong, but it makes it true for me and true for you.
Sure.
Right? Yeah. If we can kind of look at like everybody's got their own perspective, that's what makes us unique.
Yeah.
For me, it just kind of allows me to kind of handle the world a little better. Like, oh, that's just, they're exercising perspective.
Yeah. So I mean, what was it about that book that got you excited or like that shifted your mind?
It was. I feel like you're interviewing me. I like this. This is fun.
Well, I'm just curious.
Flipping it around.
This idea of, I mean, really, in its essence, that our bodies were born to run.
Oh, okay.
And
yeah, so the central premise, basically.
And that I could just go, and I remembered as a kid going out and just running in the yard with my brother and playing and not having shoes on or having shoes on, but not caring either way. Yeah. And so not carrying this big deal with me every time I went.
I don't know, that's a great thing to take from the book. Yeah, because I think that is true. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's.
It could have been presented differently, but yeah, I think I believe in that. Yeah.
All right.
Well, you're a writer, right?
I don't know how you define writing. I know how to write words.
Any potential any potential for a book or any interest in pursuing that at some point?
I think I have an interest in writing a book at some point. My stock answer to that has been, if I have something worth
Right.
Until I do
Same.
something worth writing about, then I'll. But I believe less and less that you need to actually do something worth writing about. People can still have things to say, just because they have a perspective in the world. But I don't know, like writing a book takes a lot of time and energy and focus, and you'd have to like put everything else in your life on hold. And I feel like I'm still kind of in my physical prime, and I want to like be trying to do what I can with that while I can, so maybe in like 5 years when I'm irrelevant, I'll write a book.
Still gathering content right now.
No, that's exactly. Seriously.
Well, I think you're right on with that,
And
because
procrastinate.
and it
time.
seems that somebody like you, like you're not going to half-ass it. Like you're gonna dive into it, like you do with most things.
Yeah, I
But
would. If my name is on it, A, I want to have written it, and B, I want to feel good about it.
Yeah.
There's no way I would let it be published if I felt shitty about it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah. All right. So
I just wanted to,
yeah.
the second, so you came back for the second Leadville. What was that like? So
that was much different. I kind of knew what I was in for, and I ran a lot faster, and it was really easy. It's one of the best races I've ever run. It was just like
everything clicked and
no, definitely not. But it was just like I was just really fit, and I remember I was just talking. I have a friend who's Leadville will be her first 100 here, like 6 weeks or whatever, and I was telling her about how 20 miles into Leadville in 2007, I like wanted to drop out because I was just bored. Basically, I'd run the course so much that summer, and like I was already in the lead by several minutes, and I'd win by 3.5 hours that year, and it was the second fastest time on the course until still the third fastest time on the course. But yeah, I just most of it I was just really fit and didn't have a low patch. So yeah, it was by no means a perfect race, but like it was just, if you could just have an even race at 100 miles, that's as close to perfect as it comes. If you can get by without having a serious low patch, you're lucky, because you almost always have some really low patch. So.
And then what happened the following year? Did you not?
That would be 2008. I was injured. 2009, I dropped out at 80 miles. 2010, I dropped out at 82 miles. What was 2011? Oh, broken leg. And then 2012, I was fourth.
Okay.
Yeah.
So you come off the 2006, 2007 win, and then do injuries start to come in?
I mean, I've been injured since I was 14 years old.
Really?
I got my first stress fracture when I was 14. Yeah. It's just those other years, I don't know, I just finessed it enough. And it was, the year that in 2007, I had 6 weeks of training leading up to that race. But I ran over 200 miles each of those weeks, so just like cram it in. That's not true. That's not true. The first week was like 135, and then it was 200 for 5 weeks straight.
Oh my God.
And then like a 5-day taper, and then 16:14 at Leadville. Yeah.
That was your time, 16:14?
Yeah.
Holy crap.
Wow. And then I ran 5 miles the next day. It was just like I was totally psycho at that point.
Oh my God.
I was just like running 4 hours a day every day, But
So but you knew that course so well. You said you trained on it a lot. Is that something that you do, like just this repetition of courses, or
it's just, well, Leadville is like, it's 2 hours from the Front Range. I was living in the Springs at the time. I was up there most weekends that summer. So yeah, I'd put in a lot of time on the course, but it's like, that's not something that's not necessary to do well in a race. And I don't even know if it's like a good thing, like because of that, like I got to like 20 miles and I was just like uninspired. I was just like, well, I just feel like I'm out for another run and this is sort of boring,
Yeah.
You want it to be like, and that's kind of why Leadville's so cool. There is a lot of hype around it. Like there's like a lot of people at aid stations, and it feels like a big event,
Yeah.
Which turns off a lot of people, but I like having that external sort of energy in a 100-mile race, because man, you need some extra energy, because 100 miles is a long way.
Yeah, I'm kind of at the place where you were talking about like 100 miles. It's like I can't imagine running 100 miles.
Yeah, but you could totally do it. Like
I'm sure. I know I could totally do it.
Yeah.
I'm just kind of waiting to see whatever this progression is. So I'm doing.
Yeah, and that's really what it is. It's just like all these steps you take, and then it becomes doable in your mind. And every time, like the next time you do a 50K, it'll be so much easier than the first
Oh,
time.
good. I'm doing one in October.
Yeah, and like it's just like your head will be into it, and I mean, 100 miles is like hard every time, but like, you know, you go in with less doubt each time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
I don't know.
I like the unknown. What were you going to say?
I was just gonna say we were at the 50 mile. We helped support a friend at Leadville when you were at the 50 mile
like the
turnaround
silver-
spot, and it
okay.
was like packed. Like I mean,
Yeah,
we were like,
Winfield, yeah.
yeah, exactly.
crazy,
It was pretty crazy.
What year? That was 2010,
2009.
2009.
Yeah.
It's
And
hot that year.
and our
It was-
yeah. And our friend, he ended up dropping out at the halfway point.
Okay.
But then, you know, there's all these kind of, that happens there, right?
Yeah.
And so there's all these kind of pacers kind of hanging out. And then, like,
Yeah, I mean,
you
that's
know,
where you pick up your pacer.
exactly, yeah. And but then there was like, hey, I need a pacer. Like people were picking up new pacers. And BJ, tell him about the guy that you got hooked up with.
So I was supposed to pace my buddy, and then he didn't finish. But then this other guy came in, and he needed a pacer from Michigan, and he had been
The guy who was racing was from Michigan.
from
Okay,
Michigan, and he had been training. I got to know him. I went over a
Sea
whole pass with
level.
him, and he's
Yeah.
like training at sea level. He did not look like a runner at all. Just this normal, which
Yeah,
they
man.
normally do. Just normal
Like
guy.
this banker just marching over the pass, you know? Like,
He might have been a banker, and he was getting it done.
yeah,
he was getting
no,
it
it's so rad. I
done,
think
and I
that's just
love
so
that
cool.
experience.
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
just
Like
to
he's
be a
from
part of it.
Michigan, and he's like, I'm gonna go to 13,000 feet.
Exactly.
Yeah, he killed it. Like
He did.
You
And he finished-
paced him. You paced him to what?
Just the 10 miles up over,
over
the pass
Twin
to the
Lakes
next
then.
Twin Lakes. Yeah,
yeah.
exactly that. Yeah, that was super fun experience. So I don't know. Maybe we'll be there
yeah.
someday. How is running like? Like, has it changed for you? Your perspective now that you have so many years under your belt, and you know you're
Yeah,
getting
it shifted
older.
a lot. Yeah.
How has it shifted?
Well, first, I mean, I've gotten injured a lot lately, just like consistently, like no times of health in between the injuries, you know. And that just has like a wearing effect on your psyche. At least for me, it's just like God, I need to like have other sources of joy in my life, you know. And so there's that, and then after so many years in the sport and being around the sport, for me at least, there's sort of an undeniable kind of like cynicism combined with being injured. You know, there's like some bitterness a little bit, and like, and that's all like, that all sounds super negative. But the thing is, anytime that I am able to run consistently, like, it's such a like nourishing activity. It's so pure and simple and easy and portable and time effective. And
Do you feel like your gratitude is like acute? Like
yeah, it is. Because I mean, I used to just like be so much redundancy in my life. You know, when you're running 200 mile, like 30 hours a week, it's just another like 15 mile run, you know, as you're doing every single day. And so now when I'm able to go run for 15 miles, I'm like super psyched about it. So yeah, that's inevitable. But
what's the other? But you've gotten into some other stuff too, like climbing.
So basically, because running has become so unsustainable for me, I've had to like I've had time to do other things that I've been interested in over the years. Like my bike got stolen in 2006, you know, and so like, you know, I was running 200 miles a week then because you
didn't have your bike.
Wasn't doing any biking. Yeah. And I got into rock climbing my first month freshman year on campus at CC, but I was always running so much, it just
took a back seat.
Yeah, it totally took a back seat. And then same thing, like, you know, I tried skiing some my freshman year. I really turned off by resorts, and so then this time around when I took to it more for like cross training purposes, you know, I went the total like alpine touring backcountry skiing route instead. And it's over the years, it's just like has become this thing of, well, the thing that really gets me excited is being out in the natural world, being in the mountains and that kind of thing. And these are all just modes of doing that. Running has always been the foundation. It certainly made the most sense growing up in Nebraska. These other things I find certainly as interesting and rewarding and enriching as running is.
Yeah, and just staying curious about different ways that you can move your body.
Yeah, exactly. And definitely using your body is obviously the other thing that unites all these things, and that's an important thing for me. Like being functional and capable in the world, you know, with my physical being, and yeah, I just think that especially in modern society where everything is so mechanized and we spend so much of our lives trying to like create this cocoon of comfort, I think it's important to like shirk that and, you know, do something that's uncomfortable. That's a super privileged position to have, but like, yeah, I'm a financially stable middle-aged dude, so
You're not
living in
middle-aged.
the
Yeah,
first
man.
world.
I know you think you're middle-aged.
There's plenty of people in their 30s who have a lot more responsibilities than I do, you know, and that's, I totally respect that. But and something I strive for, honestly, at some point. But yeah, just challenging yourself and doing things that aren't familiar or comfortable is, I don't know, the only way I know to grow as a person. So yeah.
How do you think people get comfortable with that uncomfortableness, or how do you personally chart that territory?
It's repetition.
Keep putting yourself out there.
An example is pretty much any time you go into the high country in the wintertime, it's going to be really uncomfortable, you know? Wind's blowing, everything's cold, but like you just get used to it. I don't know. I don't know. It's never any less like rewarding at the end of the day to come back from something like that, but it does become easier to be out there, you know, just from doing it a lot.
Did you feel like 100 milers got easier to be out there because of the repetition?
I mean, there were some that were easier than others, but I don't know. They were always pretty hard for me. I hope to do more, for sure.
Was that kind of your distance, or did you like 50 milers? What was your favorite distance?
Probably in the 100K range.
Yeah.
Because 100 miles, it's becoming more and more where you really have to be like a runner and be fit to be competitive at it. But there's just so many other like X factors involved. You know, your stomach, the weather, running at night, fueling, like the condition of your feet, all this stuff. Like it's just basically how tough you are. Like these things are all not fitness, but they're all hugely determining factors in racing well at 100 miles. So for me, like 100K, a lot of those factors are kind of taken away. Like you can get through 100K, say 12 to 15 hours of racing at most, about 12 hours, with like poor nutrition. Like you can survive through 12 hours with your stomach going bad, but you can't in a 100 miler. Like you can get to like 75 miles of like, but you're not gonna make it that last quarter if like your stomach's just, if you're not able to absorb any calories, you know? So I don't know. That's why I was always a little more excited about those distances, because it was more of a like running test than, you know, fitness test than just
nutrition comes in.
Yeah, nutrition
big.
And just all the other X factors of like, So, yeah.
What have you learned about yourself? Like, what was, do you have a takeaway moment through your experience, whatever activity you're doing, where you've really learned something about yourself?
I'm sorry, I didn't really get the first, what have I learned? Or
like what have you learned about yourself? And it could be with your climbing or your cycling or running. Yeah, take your time. What comes to your mind? Like an experience maybe that you can share. Maybe you don't want to share it.
I don't know. I mean, but I don't know. That's a hard question. Yeah, because I feel like if you've actually learned it, it just becomes so endemic, and so it's hard to have perspective on, you know, like something that's become a part of you. You know what I mean?
Is there a moment of adversity that you recall that really put you to the test?
I mean, every race, there's a turning point where you just decide that you're like going to be tough and like finish and run hard, run well, and as opposed to like come up with a reason to like back off, you know?
What do you think that is about you that?
Oh, I mean, I've rationalized bullshit in the past for sure. Like it doesn't, you're not perfectly tough at least I'm not perfectly tough every single time. There are some people who are pretty close to it, but I'm not one of those people. Like I have to like choose to be tough, you know, and when push comes to shove, and you know, probably most people do, but I don't know. It's deciding that there's value in that, you know, that it's not just some like macho ego thing, but that it's like, it comes back to that kind of comfort zone thing of like, well, this is the edge and you're going to find out, you know, And do you want to be proud of yourself at the end of the day, or do you want to like ignore that part of yourself that you feel like was being weak and looking for the easy way out, you know? And I don't know, I guess in my life I value not just taking the easy way, which I'm not saying that that's universally objectively good thing, you know, like this is fine, comfort's fine, but it's not for me. I don't know.
I think you answered that perfectly.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right. Well, I want to respect your time, so I think
Cool.
that that's a great place to end.
All right, yeah, thanks for
Thank
having me
you
on.
so
Yeah.
much.
Thank you,
I
Anton.
appreciate it. What are you getting up early for tomorrow?
Oh, climbing.
Tony Krupicka. Interesting dude, right? He's done some amazing things in the sport of running and climbing and general adventuring in life. And I will patiently wait for that book to come when it's time for him to write it. But for now, I am totally into following his pursuits and wishing him nothing less than total body healing from the injuries that keep him from doing what he loves the most, running. Thank you so much for tuning into the show. If you enjoyed it, please go to Apple Podcast, otherwise known as iTunes, and leave us a review. We have a goal of 100 reviews by the end of August, and as of today, we need 80 more to reach that goal. With the amount of listens we get every week, this is an easy one to reach, but we can't do it without you. So we are asking for a few moments of your time to give back to the show and leave your review. A heartfelt thank you to everyone who has already typed a few sentences on our behalf. It helps so much with our ranking and also has a major, major impact on the life of this show. We got great feedback from last week's Ironman Santa Rosa Square Table Smackdown, so if you haven't had a listen, go back and do that. But before you even do that, you have to listen to Troy RGC from episode 63 and then go on to the Santa Rosa episode, because not only do we have 2 returning guests on that show, but Troy comes back for a second week in a row. Our listeners are quickly falling in love with this talented triathlete from Mexico who has risked it all to come to America and train for the sport that brings him the most joy in life. Awesome, awesome dude, you guys. Awesome episodes, awesome guests. We are so grateful to Tony Krupicka, to Troy, to all of our guests who co-create each episode with us for you. One more note, and then I will bid you adieu for the week. If you haven't, please check out our Patreon page. We've started building out that page more with postings, and we will continue to do that. As a special thank you to our pledges, we will also be leaking a recipe or two from the cookbook and or segments from its chapters. So if you want to get a serious look inside of our cookbook, which is publishing soon, we are in the design phase now, so I'm hoping September, then go to Patreon, make your monthly pledge, and take one step deeper into the tribe. This is a powerful community of people who want to help create a better world, and we are so honored to have you in our lives. Stay curious about the moment in front of you, the endless exploration available just outside your door, and the limitless potential that lies within each one of us, patiently waiting for our return.